Hey, Satanta, you're up! One of the warriors sitting at a terrace said, looking at the towering man. Well, it's about time. Ugh. A golden light danced through his golden hair. His green eyes looked forward harshly as he grabbed a spear and strapped it over his shoulder.
Be careful. Tournament or not, the last match did end in a death.
The sole woman on the terrace said. She wore a padded fur jacket, her red hair draping over the shoulders and curling. Don't worry about it. I'm not expecting to die, the man remarked, hopping over the wall and approaching the center of the ring. Atalanta, it appears you're next. Best of luck, Heracles spoke to the woman before him, who was attaching her quiver over her shoulder.
I know, I really wish the ring was in better shape.
She sighed, looking over the wall at the cracked arena.
Yeah, so, any advice on this guy, Diomedes?
He's at least not a god, but looking at who we've seen thus far, you might have your hands full.
That'll work.
She chuckled, springing over the wall and into the ring. The man, Satanta remarked, might be needing this, pulling a shield from his leather belt, his long blonde hair waving in curls about his head, while no armor to speak of covered his torso. Leather boots and trousers were complemented by a simple green tunic.
I appreciate the respect.
Atalanta bowed curtly. Her hair brown like an acorn shell waved down her head as she did so. Her simple white dress blew in the breeze. My mentor is a skilled warrior. I'd never assume from appearances. If you come from the same place as that Achilles, I'd best be ready. He seemed almost untouchable.
Well, Achilles is special. For the most part, he is invincible.
Then double the reason to ready my shield. Care to take a few steps back, or can we begin now?
Is single combat a forte of yours?
In a word, yes.
Then, while I appreciate the offer, I'm fine here.
Atalanta commented, holding her bow at her side. Suit yourself! Satanta came forward, unsheathing a sword, leaving the spear on his back auxiliary.
Thank you anyways.
Atalanta lowered her head and dashed off to the side. She slid on her sandals, an arrow singing from her quiver quickly to the drawstring. Her eyes centered at the swordsman as he turned. An arrow was flung free and it thunked against his shield, his boots pushing him forward quickly. The sword swung out and she rolled aside, the swing striking air. She reached her feet quickly and stepped back a single step, arrow in hand, and centered for another shot at Satanta's open side. It was let loose, and it was bounced upward by the shield, his body twisting almost unnaturally fast to meet it.
Those few steps were to make me feel comfortable. I'm glad I didn't bite,
she remarked, aiming another arrow and directing it towards him. You're pretty quick. He came towards her in a charge, readying his sword again. Another arrow was sent his way. She swept low and darted off to the side, creating distance between them, before the swing could ever come close. His sword swung up and met the shaft, splitting it in two before it could meet him.
I was raised by a she-bear. Thanks for noticing.
She readied another arrow. The arrow was sent forward. His blade cleaved it in half and he began walking forward. That'll explain it.
And what about you? You're not even having to try here.
Another arrow. It too was cut and he began to close the distance. I'm a bit special.
I could tell that, but so is everyone else here.
I am the strongest warrior in Ireland. I fought entire armies in single combat. Satanta pushed onward, his frame now only a few meters away, closing quickly. With agility, Atalanta jumped back, avoiding another swing.
Really? That's a bit more impressive.
Her arrow was sent at him. It was cut in half, Satanta looking over with a glimmer in his eyes. I guess I should give my name, though I can tell that I'm from well after your time. I'm Satanta by birth, but everyone seems to know me from something that happened when I was a wee child. So I answered a Chulainn as well.
A single mistake? What'd you do?
Her eyes darted to the side, looking for an escape, realizing her foe was coming closer. I killed a blacksmith's dog in self-defense, mind you, and apologized by taking its place. Really not that epic a story. But we all can't be great sages equal to heaven, now can we?
Knowing the creatures I have seen, I doubt it was as easy as you make it.
Well, compared to the other stuff I've done, it really is. He smiled before coming forward in a charge. His sword cut above her head. She narrowly dodged it, a clump of hair blowing in the breeze as she slid off to the side. Swinging to her feet, she darted away.
And that is why I did not want to be on the receiving end of that sword of yours. I can see the strength behind your attacks.
3 arrows, one after another, were drawn from her quiver and shot. They struck against Chulainn's raised shield, each one prodding the wood and standing free. You got me there, so what's your story? One doesn't get raised by a bear without something happening. He took his sword and slashed free the shield-caught arrows.
Well, I'm Atalanta. My parents were supposedly a king and queen in Arcadia, who left me alone in the wilderness because I wasn't a male heir. From there, Artemis sent a she-bear to guard me, until a pair of hunters adopted me as their daughter.
Atalanta let loose another arrow. It was slashed down by Chulainn, and he kept his approach. Raised by hunters, too. That accounts for the accuracy, then. He spoke, continuing forward.
And my swift-footedness!
Atalanta shouted, moving away. She ran off to Chulainn's side and drew an arrow. As she slid to the right, almost behind him, she let the arrow fire. It took forward and met the shield, which swung out to greet it, only for Atalanta to spring into the air and let loose another arrow. A red patch extended out from Chulainn's left pectoral, spinning as the tip of the arrow dug into flesh, and he stumbled a step backward, the careful eye of his archer opponent watching his body to see if he would fall. That stings. What a shot. That one was definitely supposed to kill me, but it wasn't deep enough. He pulled the arrow free, the blood on his chest continuing to stain outward.
How about this one?
Another arrow was sent his way, following the same path as the first. His free hand reached out and plucked the arrow from the air before it could reach his skin, the shaft shattering in his grip. You're halfway through your quiver.
You can forfeit any time you'd like.
Atalanta sighed, reaching back over her shoulder and pulling free yet another arrow. The arrow was sent shooting forward in the same movement. Like that's going to happen! His shield-bearing left arm knocked the arrow aside and he came forward, bearing his sword. Atalanta reached for another arrow as he charged.
Figures.
She shot for his head, aiming between the eyes. He weaved out of the way, in time for his sword to come shooting down towards her. It bit flesh as she attempted to move out of its way, rivulets of crimson rushing down her left arm as the wound spread across her shoulder. Chulainn spun and went for a backswing on the same strike, only to find his foe sliding away. Her heels dug into the dust as she made distance between them. Straightening to a vertical base, she pulled to a stop and raised her bow-wielding right hand, an arrow slipping through her now bloody fingers onto the drawstring. Well, that took a lot of skill. The Irish warrior smiled and readied his shield, preparing for a counterattack.
Well, I appreciate the compliment,
she said, letting the prepared arrow fly. The arrow met his shield, Atalanta charging forward right behind it.
But those compliments aren't a win, so take this!
She jumped up and over her foe, arrow drawn and pointing straight down. Then she grimaced, releasing the arrow. Her arrow went wide of her target and she landed, reaching for her left shoulder.
Damn it!
Can't shoot straight with a bummed arm.
Thanks for the obvious.
Look, I don't want to have to kill you. This is just a tournament after all, and you're just trying to win too. Atalanta nodded, her bow now laying at her side and her right hand now drenched in the blood coming from the gash upon her shoulder.
I'm not saying I can't go longer, but if I can't aim straight, then there's no chance of me hitting you.
It was a good match. We only hit each other once apiece. If we were on a battlefield where you could duck and cover, this would have been a different story, I feel.
Yeah, but we aren't, so take your win.
Gladly. Chulainn was the victor.